All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started just in the interest of keeping things moving. Um, like, uh, like they said a few minutes ago, I am a Superior Livestock rep. I also work for Marty and Allied Genetic Resources. So the long and the short of the story is we, um, whew, we offer a genetic component to, to our business. And I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of some ways we can create and add value to these feeder cattle as we start to get into this fall run and and start the marketing season. Um, maybe, maybe not. So we have a larger team than just myself. There's 5 of us that work on the Allied Genetic Resources marketing team, which creates the opportunity for us to not only offer, you know, service to you guys as sellers, but we also have a good relationship with hundreds of buyers across the country. And so not only do we utilize Superior's marketing efforts from a marketing standpoint, but we're also able to do that, you know, at a national basis. And we have good relationships. Both myself and Clint Berry is a part of that as well. And we want to add value to these cattle. I jumped ahead a little bit here. And so let's talk about kind of some of the things we can do. First things first, when you get ready to sell those cattle, we want to make sure we can get them in front of as many possible potential buyers as we can, right? We want to expose them to the largest stage there is, because ultimately that's what's going to create the most competitive bidding. We're not interested in one guy wanting your calves. We're interested in 2, 3, 4 folks interested in your feeder cattle. And the next thing, of course, we touched on it a little bit on the panel there, is these cattle have to be vaccinated in a robust manner in order to take the next segment. And like John was saying earlier, in some cases that's not necessarily the case, but for us, for those cattle to go to the next level in a load lot, so ultimately we sell these cattle and they fill a pen. And in that regard, we've got to have those cattle vaccinated with a good modified live and a 7-way viral and those kinds of things. So weaning, you know, buyers don't like risk any more than you do, turns out. And so if we can wean those cattle and set them up, that's certainly going to be favorable from a price standpoint. And like I said, load lots. We market cattle in load lots on Superior. And the reason for that is there's a cost, a procurement cost, to purchase cattle, right? When those buyers come to town to buy feeder cattle, it costs them something. And when they can buy one load that fills one pen in their feed yard, that's cheaper than buying 10, 15 head at a time to fill that pen. So the procurement costs on those cattle actually from the buyer's standpoint is cheaper when they can do it 50,000 pounds at a time. And ultimately, if we don't have that much to sell, it's really pretty difficult. And then, of course, we've got a vast array of value-added programs that'll help us do that in terms of price differentiation. Oops, wrong way. So some of the major benefits we'll touch on. We have the largest buyer base in the world. I mean, there's routinely, we have 9,000 active bidders that register on a weekly basis. We have a sale every week, and that's not 9,000 guys that have registered before. That's an active list. We have a lot of flexibility. You know, when your market runs a little bit and you're ready to sell those cattle, we can do that every week. I think on a Tuesday, if you're ready to sell your cattle, we could get them consigned by 5 o'clock, and they'd sell that following, 2 days later on that Thursday. We have that kind of flexibility. We also have a program called the Country Page, which in essence is a eBay-style format of marketing, and basically you set an asking price, and buyers can bid up to that asking price before those cattle are traded. And that's a 24/7 deal. We can trade cattle 7 days a week. We can do it on Christmas morning if we want to. We're in our 31st year of business, and 20 of those years have been we started about 20 years ago with what we call value-added programs. That's everything from a value-added management program to some of these NHTC and natural programs that we utilize. And those are proven price differentiating programs that allow us to create more demand for those cattle because it creates more flexibility for those cattle at the next level. It's not unusual for us to see a $20 to $40 spread in asking price within one weight range because of those programs, right? Let's see. Some other things, the other thing I like, one of my favorites, is that the seller's in complete control of the process from start to finish, right? You set the weigh-up conditions. You set the delivery details. You're in charge of the shrink. You manage the shrink. In other words, most of my cattle leave right from the ranch directly off the truck, and so you're in charge of how much those cattle stand and shrink. We have a bonded program. I work under the bond, and so payment is guaranteed. The day the cattle leave, you get a check in the mail, or you get a check right from me. And the buyers like it from a health standpoint because they're able to enjoy country fresh cattle that aren't compromised from a health standpoint, that have not been commingled, and so those vaccinations have their biggest chance to be successful. And then, of course, we sort every load and we ship every load, so I'm on site with every set of cattle that sell. And, of course, we do that for a relatively low cost from a commission standpoint. We're able to get that done for about 2%, $2 a head. The company itself is a national-based company. We have about 400 reps nationwide. That's from California and all coast to coast. I think there might even be one in North Carolina. 3 main offices. Most of the business is done out of the Brush office in Brush, Colorado. Fort Worth and Oklahoma City do some promotional things as well. Like I said, our business is contracting and selling cattle in load lots for either future or immediate delivery. We've sold cattle as quickly as sell them today, deliver them tomorrow, and as far out as 6 months prior to delivery, we've sold those cattle. The vast majority of those cattle are sold in 3 different ways, about 1.3 million in 2017. And the most popular way that we sell cattle, of course, is on the video, which I'm sure that most of you guys have heard about. And video and internet auctions are the way that we prefer to sell cattle. About 1.1 million head have sold that way last year. Most of those auctions are held in Fort Worth and televised from Fort Worth, but we also operate out of Colorado, Nevada, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Iowa, Kansas, and that'll be throughout our summer series of sales where we take advantage of the upward trending price in the summer and have those sales in regional areas. Like I said, we sell probably 1.1 million head that way. The country page I mentioned earlier, I think we probably traded 80,000 head or so on the country page. And like I said, it's eBay style bidding. You can jump on the internet any time of day and go to our website and look it up. It's pretty simple and it's an easy to use low stress environment or low stress kind of way to do things. It's critical here because we don't have the added emotion and opportunity to take advantage of the auction method of marketing. It's critical to have those cattle priced within the market. And then, of course, we can trade cattle privately. I do this very little because I see more opportunity to get true price discovery through the auction method of marketing. So we do very little from a private treaty standpoint, but we do trade probably 75,000 head that way. So the VAT, I just want to touch on how it works. It probably takes 20 minutes. The first thing we'll do, maybe 30 minutes, is once we've decided to have the conversation about selling them on the video, the first thing we'll do is write that up in a contract. It's a legal-sized piece of paper with several questions regarding how the cattle have been vaccinated, head counts, what we think they'll weigh, the way that you'd like to slide them, how you'd like to shrink them, those kinds of things. Within 20 or 30 minutes, we can talk about all those things, and then we'll also talk about the value-added programs that you're eligible for or that you'd like to become eligible for at this time. Next thing we'll do, of course, is get them videoed. It's actually very simple, especially if you can do it at a convenient time for you from a management standpoint. I like to do it when the cattle are changing pastures. It's easy to do when they're headed to water. I've filmed them in a ravine where they're going to water or something like that. That's quite easy to do. And then, of course, we'll circulate a catalog. Not only does Superior send out a sale book, obviously, on the cattle, much like a bull sale catalog, we'll also do our own marketing efforts as representatives, and we have a listserv of emails and addresses that we send out on every lot that we sell to prospective buyers that we have relationships with more than just what's on the internet. And so there'll be 200 or 300 of those that we send out on every single lot of cattle we sell, and those are very targeted, right? I'm not going to send buyers here in Washington anything about cattle that I've got for sale in Florida. That obviously doesn't make sense. But we'll point that list, so to speak, and target the buyers that are most interested in those cattle. Then, of course, sale day comes. You can come to any of these auctions if that's of interest to you. Otherwise, of course, we'll go to those sales, or we will have a representative from our team at each of those sales. The cattle will trade. You'll be on the phone either with me or with probably Clint Berry, who goes to most of the Fort Worth sales for us, and you have the opportunity to watch those cattle sell either online or on TV, and much like an auction, much like a sale barn setting. So then, of course, weigh day comes when we're ready to deliver those cattle, either 6 months later or as early as the next day. We need to make sure we get them run across a certified scale, be that on the ground or on the truck, so we can do it either way. And get the cattle weighed, and at that point you'll of course ship them, and you'll get your check. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Unless anyone has any questions, I'll just go right ahead. Shoot. I can slide them both ways. We have a slide. It's called we call it the two-way. And it does come with a weight stop, 25 pounds one way or another. I actually like to use that in a weaned setting, where if the cattle are weaned and we can make them level with a big sort, I'm real comfortable with it. Calves coming off grass that we don't know anything about, I'm not real comfortable with the two-way. That's obviously, if we don't know where the grass is, if the cattle are purchased, and the first time we've handled them, I'm not comfortable with that. I'd be more comfortable with a conventional or the right slide, just for the simple reason that if we're outside of that weight stop, we don't have the opportunity to get paid for those pounds. Talk a little bit about like I mentioned, we have about 20 years worth of value-added programs that we feel like have proven to differentiate quality. And if you've ever watched the video or ever seen it on TV, you'll see these lots come across, and they'll have these logos or emblems across the bottom of the lot, depending on what they are. And basically, what each of these represent is a different value-added piece that these cattle either qualified for or were eligible for. This particular set of cattle was traded on the right slide with a weight stop, like I just mentioned. They were weaned, so they sold on the VAC 45 program, and they're source and age NHTC and natural, and then they'll have a whole host of genetic merit programs with them. And so all that's fine and dandy, but if it doesn't actually create differentiation within the marketplace, it's no good, right? And so I took a market report. This is a screenshot of the website, and this is for Region 2, so this is actually the Mountain West, so to speak. This is on the website for every auction we do, And I just took the average of the price range for each weight class, right? And that average is almost $32 of price differentiation. Now, those weights were about 40 pounds difference. So a 6 weight to a 640 weight, there was $30 per hundredweight difference at that weight class. That is due predominantly to the value-added programs associated with those high-selling lots and the value-added programs not associated with those lower-selling lots, right? Touch on a little of them. I feel like we lead the industry in vaccination protocols. You've heard me talk a little bit about the VAC 45 and VAC 34 protocols. Those would be the two most popular. And then we have one for backgrounded, put-together cattle we call VAC Precon, and then one for calves. All of those VAC programs require a modified live vaccine with some sort of pastorella, a 7-way, and most of them, it's a voluntary deal, but we'd sure like them to have some sort of ivermectin or poron of some kind for external parasites. Been a lot of talk today about these EID tags and some sort of source verification. We will do that. That's obviously voluntary and nationwide, but we have the ability to do that. We use IMI Global predominantly. That's my preference of folks to work with just from a communication standpoint. They're easy to communicate with. We have a whole host of ways to agent source those cattle. And each of those, when it's all said and done, I think there's probably $1.25 per hundredweight premium to get those cattle agent sourced. If you've done the work here, obviously any Trinity cattle would, or Trinity bull sired calves would qualify for what we call superior progressive genetics. That's our reputation seed stock marketing system, and that allows you to sell those cattle and back them up with reputation seed stock. The genetic merit programs, Chip touched on obviously the most important or most popular one, the feeder profit calculators, is fast gaining traction in our business. NHTC is the the export market qualification. NHTC stands for non-hormone treated cattle, and if the cattle aren't treated with hormones, they're qualified for export markets under this program. And so if they're NHTC verified, that's a third-party deal. IMI can do that. Several others will do that as well. Like I said, we work predominantly 90% probably with IMI, and they'll allow those cattle or offer them the flexibility to go to the next level or to qualify for export. Those premiums, obviously, or those programs obviously aren't any good unless they have a premium associated with them, right? VAC 34 is the balling calf protocol we use. We only got about $1.48, and that's relative to our baseline, which we call VAC 24, which would be branding age shots. I say branding age shots in like Missouri, and it doesn't mean anything. But 3 months of age, 2 to 4 months of age, actually, I think is the qualification. Those cattle we don't see a premium for from a vaccination standpoint. So when we're able to give them one round of shots, we see about $1.50 a hundredweight. VAC 45 is weaned calves, and we, like I said before, I think we can get $6 a hundredweight out of those calves over and above balling calves if we go ahead and wean them 45 days, set them up, and that's, again, if they don't make any weight or if they don't gain any weight in that weaning process. Agent source is roughly $1.25. Superior progressive genetics, if we can get them sired by high-end bulls, that's about $1.30, and those export verified cattle, we see up to $4. This is 2017 data. I anticipate this will be much higher throughout 2018. That data is not complete. K-State does a study for us every year and allows us to do that. I anticipate $6 to $8 on feeders and $3 to $5 on calves. That's just a guess. But this is 2017 data. So it is a little bit of a different market, but it's certainly worth doing the audit, so to speak, if you can justify it from a head count standpoint. What are the advantages to you as a seller? Obviously, there's nowhere you can get as much exposure and create and offer the cattle in front of as many people as what you can from our buyer base. I still think it's advantageous that you're in control. That's one of the most attractive things for most of my sellers is they're in control of the entire process. I'm going to tell you and help you talk about what's going to create more value or what's going to slow people down from a bidding standpoint, right? But you have the ability and opportunity to set up the shrink details, the weigh-up conditions, and you can also tell me when they're going to ship within 2 weeks. Again, check is bonded. It's 100% guaranteed that you'll get paid. We have a proven track record. 20 years of price differentiation within our marketing system, and we're able to get that done on a weekly basis. And then, of course, like I said, we'll consult with you in terms of how to get the most value out of those cattle. Why buyers, and the other side of that, obviously, is we don't have a business if we don't have that second set of customers, which is our buyers. And the reason that we have so many buyers, obviously, is because they like to buy cattle the way that we sell them. They enjoy that country fresh delivery. They enjoy having a third party represent and ship and load those cattle. It's a really simple process from their end. I think they write me a partial payment right after the cattle sell, and they finish that, of course, when the cattle are delivered. They're able to set up the trucks, communicate with me, sometimes on several lots, and everything is set up. And then the other piece that they really enjoy is a health standpoint. I was at a feed yard probably 3 weeks ago now, and he said the biggest advantage for him, hands down, was that when he started buying cattle exclusively off of Superior, he said our health issues reduced dramatically because the cattle were one source, the cattle were robustly vaccinated, and he said that the vaccination issues were reduced very quickly. And then, of course, they have the opportunity to find out what each set of those cattle are actually worth from a price standpoint, and they know what they have to pay for them. Bottom line, if we can get as much exposure for your calves as possible, that creates more bidding activity. It's not my job to get one guy interested in your calves. It's my job to get 3, 4, 5 guys interested in your calves, and we can only do that, like I said, with as much exposure as possible. We use Superior Livestock at Allied because we feel like there isn't a better marketing system that has as much of a proven track record to separate and differentiate quality from more commodity-based cattle than what we can get done here at Superior. Again, the most exposure you can get, and it's an opportunity for true price discovery. That's all I got, unless anyone has any questions. That was quick. Cool, thank you.